I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Pursuant to AB 361, the meeting is being conducted by way of Zoom and also being broadcast in room 6300 at 707 3rd Street in West Sac for anyone that would like to provide public comment in person. Just note two things. We're all used to this by now. You'll all be muted during the meeting. But if you'd like to make a comment, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom so that we can call on you. And if you're calling into the meeting and not using the app, unfortunately, you won't be able to provide public comment unless you want to do so in person. And Assemblymember Burke resigned at the beginning of February and therefore is no longer a member of the State Allocation Board, but we're really grateful for her service and wish her very well. And with that, we'll establish a quorum, please. Ms. Jones, will you call the roll?
Certainly. Senator Wilk.
Present.
Senator Leyva.
Here.
Senator Laird. Assemblymember O'Donnell.
O'Donnell here.
Assemblymember Mays.
Here.
Juan Morales.
Here.
Jeremy Smith.
Here.
Anna Lasso.
Present.
Gail Miller.
Here, great. We have a quorum. Thanks, everyone. Next order of business are the minutes. Ms. Silverman is celebrating her grandchildren, so she's not with us today, but we've seen lots of beautiful pictures. It's really exciting, so we wish her all the best. So Ms. Kampminer is going to lead the way today. Will you, the minutes from January 26th, any changes or questions on those? Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll move approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Senator Leyva. Ms. Jones, will you call the roll on the minutes, please?
I will. Senator Wilk.
Aye.
Senator Leyva.
Aye.
Assemblymember O'Donnell.
Aye.
Assemblymember Mays.
Aye.
Juan Morales.
Aye.
Jeremy Smith.
Aye.
Anna Lasso.
Aye.
Gail Miller.
Aye, the minutes are adopted. Next, Ms. Kampminer, the executive officer statement, please.
Yes, thank you. So in the executive officer statement this month, we'd like to highlight a few items. The first is a status update on the 22nd priority funding round and the apportionment. So right now we are looking at that $250 million in general fund that we did apportion in January. And we wanted to let the board know that to date, we have received 22 fund release requests totaling $35 million. And there are 79 projects that will still need to request their funds, and those requests are due by Tuesday, April 26th. We also wanted to highlight that we had a virtual state agency workshop with the Department of Education and the Division of the State Architect. And we also had a great case study that Pixley Union School District provided for that workshop as well. And that was a very successful event with 573 external participants joining us. The topics included an overview of the state agency role in the school construction process. And then we did a detailed training session for our California preschool, transitional kindergarten, and full day kindergarten program. We've received a lot of positive feedback on that workshop, and the three agencies are in the planning stages for the next event. So more to come on that. And then we also wanted to share that we are wrapping up our stakeholder meetings on the updates to the facilities inspection tool that are required pursuant to SB 129. We've had 2 prior meetings, and our third meeting is scheduled for March 3rd, and that's going to begin at 3 o'clock, and it will be through Zoom. We anticipate bringing forth the proposed changes to the FIT to the board in the next few meetings after the conclusion of that meeting. And then we also did want to share, and many of you are aware of this, but we did want to share that the audit by the California State Auditor of the SFP Modernization Program has concluded, and that report is now public. And the great news is that the report did conclude that OPSC and the State Allocation Board are in compliance with requirements in state law and program regulations and policies when processing and awarding funds for modernization projects. This is excellent news. There were no audit findings and no official responses required by OPSC or the board. So that was great news. There are a number of recommendations in there for the legislature to consider for future program changes. And we have included a link to the full audit report in the executive officer statement if anyone would like to access that. And then just a reminder that our next meeting is March 23rd at 4 p.m. with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
O'Donnell has a statement real quick, if I could.
Please, Mr. O'Donnell.
Yeah, I just like to congratulate and recognize the staff on that recent audit. Actually, it highlighted the fact that you're doing a good job. The program overall works to serve California's children. There's hardship built in, which is essentially equity. And again, I think it just is a reflection, that audit is a reflection of the fine work that is done by the staff.
Yes, I second that, Mr. O'Donnell. Thank you. And congratulations to the team that does such a great job. Great. Seeing no further comment. Right, Mr. Watanabe, you don't see any either, right? Okay. We will move on to the consent calendar, please.
The consent calendar is ready for your approval.
Great. Thank you, Senator Leyva. I'll second. May we, any public comment on the consent calendar? Seeing none, may we take the roll on the consent calendar, please, Ms. Jones?
Yes. Senator Wilk,
Aye.
Senator Leyva,
Aye.
Assemblymember O'Donnell,
Aye.
Assemblymember Mays,
Aye.
Juan Morales,
Aye.
Jeremy Smith,
Aye.
Ana Lasso,
Aye.
Gail Miller.
Aye, the consent calendar is adopted. Thank you very much. Ms. Kampmeinert, for the financial reports, please.
Yes, the financial reports are beginning on page 54, and just a couple things to highlight this month. We did want to point out on stamp page 54 that we did release 158 million in funds during the month of January, so that was a good number there. And we also wanted to share that on page 56, we are able to make a new approval for a career technical education facilities program grant. So we're able to provide another district with some funding, and that district is a small district that's very excited about this award. So that is great news. And then just a general note on this, that because of one of our action items, the change to the grant amounts, the consent calendar and the financials do show fewer than usual unfunded approvals, but in March, you can expect the financials to show a lot more, because we will be bringing the unfunded approvals forward for the equivalent of our January, February, and March boards. And with that, answer questions.
Thank you, Ms. Kampmeinert. So what this is on our next action item is on the increase for the grants based on costs. So that's our next item. So we'll open that up for any questions, but any other than on the cost adjustment, are there any questions about any questions on the financials? That's really exciting about the additional grant. Thank you for pointing that out. Seeing no questions, any public comments on the financials? With that, Ms. Kampmeinert, I think that was a perfect segue into our action item.
Yep, so the much anticipated information has come from RS Means to provide us with the rate of change in the construction cost index measures. And just as a reminder, typically we do this in January, but the data was not available just because 2021 was a very interesting year for costs. And so RS Means was running the data up until the very end of the year to make sure that they got a complete picture of 2021. We have received that data set, and it has been determined that the rate of change between 2021 and 2022 is equal to 15.8%. So you'll see that we've included the corresponding adjustments to the school facility program grants beginning on page 75 of the agenda in the blue and white charts there. So we are recommending that the board approve the 15.8% change to the grant amounts pursuant to the RS Means Class B construction cost index. And this is the measure that the board had adopted back in 2016 and directed us to use moving forward. It is still the measure that contains the most California specific data. We do take a peek at the other measures upon occasion just to make sure it's still tracking, and it does appear to be doing so. And with the board's approval of this item, when we bring back the unfunded approvals beginning in March, all of those projects will include the new 2022 grant amounts in their project calculations. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? I know it's obviously we spoke about this last time, that we had to wait until the very end of the year. And so you can see the impacts obviously of inflation and other costs. and how much construction has increased. So, and we vetted it a few times just because we recognize it's a high number. And just as a reminder, funding goes with this percentage, not construction. So the funded amounts you'll see starting in March will reflect this increase, but not when construction begins. And that's how our laws and regulations are written. So any public comment on the increase in the grant amounts based on the construction cost index? Seeing none, I will move approval of the construction cost index amount. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Senator. Do you have a comment, Ms. Lasso? Oh, no, great. Ms. Jones, will you take the roll?
Certainly will. Senator Wilk,
Aye.
Senator Leyva,
Aye.
Assemblymember O'Donnell,
Aye.
Assemblymember Mays,
Aye.
Juan Morales,
Aye.
Jeremy Smith,
Aye.
Ana Lasso,
Aye.
Gail Miller.
Aye. The construction cost index is adopted. Thank you very much. And now, Ms. Kampminer, we're moving to the index adjustment for on the assessment for development.
Yes, so this item comes before the board every 2 years. And with this item, statute does require that the maximum assessment for development be adjusted each 2 years. And it uses the same construction cost index changes that we apply to our grant amounts. So we're still using the RS means data. And what we're adjusting here is essentially the level 1 developer fees. And we've included a chart on the following page on page 80. Well, I'm sorry, it's not a chart, but a table on page 85 that shows what the level 1 fees have been. And these are the fees for the assessment for developers, and it's on a per square foot basis. Because we do this every 2 years, the number is a little bit bigger than what was just done when we did our construction cost index change item. But if you compare January 2020 to January 2022, there has been a 17.45% increase, the bulk of that being from 21 to 22. And by applying that percentage increase, it does change the per square foot amount to $4.79 for residential and 78 cents for commercial industrial space. So we are recommending that the board increase the 2022 level 1 assessments in the amount of 17.45% pursuant to that RS means data. And if the board approves it, those amounts will be effective immediately.
Great, thank you. Any questions on the assessment for development increase? Seeing none, any public comment? I don't see any public comment. I'll move adoption of this index adjustment for the assessment for development increase. May we have a second, please? I will second.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Lasso. Ms. Jones, will you take the roll on this one, please?
Will. Senator Wilk,
Aye.
Senator Leyva,
Aye.
Assemblymember O'Donnell,
Aye.
Assemblymember Mays,
Aye.
Juan Morales,
Aye.
Jeremy Smith,
Aye.
Ana Lasso,
Aye.
Gail Miller.
Aye. The index adjustment and the assessment for development is adopted. Next, we will move on to our piggyback contracts item in the public contract code. Ms. Kampminer?
Thank
Oh,
you. So
excuse me, I'm so sorry. There is a public commenter listed. I'm going to make sure, sir, it's on this item, however, because you need to speak on the items on the agenda. So I've unmuted you, Mr. Wellner.
Yes. Hello.
Hi, are you speaking on one of the index adjustments for construction or development fees?
No, I'm speaking on the piggyback matter.
Okay. Oh, I see. You were just raising your hand early. You're very on top of it. I appreciate that, sir. So I'm going to go ahead and ask that you mute yourself, and we'll go through the item. We'll have Ms. Kampminer explain it, and then we'll come right back to you. Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Kampminer. I apologize.
oh, no worries. Thank you. So yes, we have moved on to the report section of the agenda. So I just want to start by saying this one is not an action item, but we did want to bring this topic before the board for a refresher, and also so that we can get this information out to school districts as well. And it does relate to the use of piggyback contracts and how that connects to public contract code compliance when we are speaking about modular construction on permanent foundations. And this topic did come before the board in 2005 and again in 2006. And the board had some very robust discussions about the appropriateness and the legality of using piggyback contracts for this type of project. And essentially with the piggyback contracts, this is an alternative to doing a typical bid process for the project, where each school district would go out to bid through various means and acquire the structures and build the project. So there was some concern with the usage of piggyback contracts because essentially school district number one puts this contract in place and then it's available to others for usage at the same rate. And the other school districts would not be bidding separately. They'd be using the original contract. The board did have some concerns with that at the time, and ultimately, after looking into how this works, had asked us to take a look and work to clarify this issue with the Attorney General's office. And so an Attorney General's opinion was sought on this issue. And we have included that as part of the item. We actually felt it was important to provide the history to the board. So you'll see some transcripts from the original meetings in 05 and 06, as well as the full text of the Attorney General's opinion. And why this is coming back to light is that we were made aware from stakeholders that there may be some alternate interpretations of the Attorney General's opinion. So we were getting some requests on taking a look at that to see if something had changed that would warrant a relook at this Attorney General's opinion. So we have been working with legal counsel to see what's changed and if there was anything that needed clarification. What you'll see in the Attorney General's opinion are a couple statements. One, your typical portable classroom, which the way I've kind of been trying to describe this, because it's a simple one, is we all think about this. You've got that portable that's out there in the field. It's not intended to be there long term. Maybe there's a construction project going on somewhere else on the site, or maybe the intent is to have it at school site number one this year, but we know we're going to need it over at school site number two the next year. So it's not going to become a part of that school site. It's your true portable that's going to be moved around. Those purchases, the purchase of the actual portable classroom, that could be done through a piggyback contract, but the AG's and the AG opinion does call that out. So it was not addressing the purchase of a portable classroom that is moving around various locations. But what the AG did conclude was that if you are using modular and you're installing it onto a permanent foundation, then it is becoming part of the land. And so that makes it no longer personal property, and instead that is real property. And then that type of project must be bid. So piggyback contracts for modular construction on permanent foundations was not found to be acceptable pursuant to that AG opinion. So we wanted to bring this back up because it's been quite some time since we had this topic. We did issue an email blast to all districts reminding them of the topic, but we wanted to close the loop after we got the questions from districts that had some different opinions on this. So we wanted to make sure that nobody runs into any issues from a funding perspective, because if we're seeing these projects come forward, part of the process of applying for funding is certifying that you're in compliance with all laws governing school construction, and public contract code is included in that statement. So we were concerned that this could have an impact for districts down the line if this wasn't made known. So this is in the interest of transparency and reminding everyone about the AG opinion that we had received back then. We did not find any areas that we felt like needed to be addressed, because all of the questions really were getting at various ways to try to work around the edges of the AG opinion as opposed to clarify the AG opinion. So we weren't really seeing anything that needed clarification at this point. So there has been no change to the policy. It was just a revisit of this topic to make sure that nothing needed another set of eyes on it. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you very much. We're going to start with a question for Mr. O'Donnell, please, and then we'll get to you, Mr. Wellner. Really appreciate you hanging tight. Sorry, go ahead, Mr. O'Donnell, please.
Yeah, thank you. I get that we're really pondering a legal question here, and that is whether or not piggybacking is allowed for modulars. And I get that the answer is no per the AG's opinion. But if you back up, a broader question would be, should we allow modulars to piggyback? I get that it might take further action, either through the state legislature, well, likely through statute. But do you have an opinion as to whether or not we should allow piggybacking on modulars?
Do we have a thought on that? Obviously, this is an information item. So if we wanted to maybe have a longer discussion about whether or not we should allow modulars kind of writ large, we could certainly, we could agendize that for next time, or I could see if I can upgrade Mr. Patton as well on this question. Did I do that already? Oops, sorry. Did I do that wrong?
Well, if it's informational and she has just a short thought she can share right now.
Do you have, oh, you don't want to know kind of more details. Do you have any thoughts, Ms. Kampminer, on whether or not modulars? Because it is, I mean, it does sort of beg that question, right?
Well, so the reason we're bringing it up is because of the original AG opinion and the board's concern originally. So we're following the original guidance from the board and the AG on this one. I don't know that we've looked at the concept of maybe changing statute on this, but it does feel like it is a public contract code issue. So that would be something that if the board was interested in pursuing, we'd be happy to take a look at it, or it could follow the legislative path as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. O'Donnell. Do you want Mr. Patton to opine on it just in terms of the legality? And then we could certainly look into what it would take to.
No, I think.
Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay.
Mr. Patton.
First time I've been promoted at an SAB meeting. With legal, Ephraim Egan is on the call here also. You can see him. And so I'll actually sort of stand aside, but basically we all will repeat what Barbara has said, which is that the AG opinion is pretty clear that when an item is attached to real property, it is a fixture and should be treated as part of real property and not personal property that's subject to the piggybacking statute. And the law is, favors wherever possible competitive bidding. So we sort of default to what the Attorney General already said and don't see any reason to delve much further. We obviously defer to policy changes and the wisdom of the SAB.
Okay, I'm so sorry, Mr. Egan, that I didn't see you. Do you want to add to that? I sincerely apologize.
No, it's okay.
What
So
happens when I'm promoted to host? Look at Mr. Watanabe created a monster. Okay, sorry.
no issue. So I want to agree what Tom and Barbara did state, that the AG opinion is fairly clear that as soon as you affix a classroom onto a permanent foundation, you now consider it as real property, and the piggybacking can't be applied to something that it constitutes real property. Again, if we want to look at something else or another specific issue, we can take a look at that if that's what the SAB wants us to do. Again, if the statute changes, then that's a whole different animal itself. But the law is fairly clear in regards to public contracts that competitive bidding is favored.
Got it. So I think what Mr. O'Donnell was asking for was just, if we just take a look at, I think the legal piece is clear, but should we be considering modulars to kind of expand our aperture of what can be included? So I don't think, it sounds like it's not a question that can be answered today, because today we're just looking at the AG's opinion and reporting on that. But if we could maybe put this back on the agenda for March or April, March may be a little long, but April, just to see if there's some options maybe that we just haven't thought about. Is that possible, Ms. Kampminer, just to think about it, Ms. Lasso? And then we'll go to our public commenters.
Sure. I guess I've had a conversation about this before with folks, and even when you drop a portable, which is considered the personal property, it's not affixed to a foundation, you still have to connect it to utilities, and there's some connectivity that happens there. And so I guess my question, it's like splitting hairs at this point. isn't that also permanent, the utilities, electrical or water? And so I would like to hear what's the difference between a slab foundation with stub outs as opposed to dropping a portable and having to still do site.
That's
the
an
site
interesting question,
verification.
right? Because it has to be attached. Do you
It
know?
has, it still has to be connected unless it
Yeah.
comes with its own utilities built in. So even if they're differentiating between a slab on grade and a foundation for a modular and a portable that gets dropped, you still have to connect a portable. So isn't that also permanent?
Do you know the answer to that, Ms. Kampminer or Mr. Egan, or is that something we want to get back as well for when we put this back on the agenda?
We can certainly follow up, but I think the focus of the AG opinion was really related to the foundation, as in it did not necessarily address how the utilities itself were connected. So the foundation was the piece that was connected to that permanent foundation itself, as opposed to how you're hooking up to the electrical. We have seen different configurations of that. Obviously, there are some configurations that are more permanent than others when you're stubbing it out and dropping the, obviously you're going to need electricity regardless of how long that portable is staying. So we do recognize that there are utilities run to these buildings, but we've seen differences in how the building is placed. So, and that seemed to be where the AG opinion was connecting it, and it's and the permanence of that facility. But we're happy to take a look and see if there's anything else to that line of questioning as well.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kampminer. Senator Laird?
Oh, all I was going to say is I apologize for being late. The Rules Committee ran long, and one of the reasons was we confirmed Donna Lasso, and it was just great to see her in action, knowing all about slab concrete and everything else. So
That is such great news. That's like the third great thing we've heard on this call. Yay! Congratulations, Director Lasso. That's so exciting. Yes.
Thank you.
Such a huge win for the state of California. Okay, we forgive your tardiness, Senator, because you had a good reason. A different appointment, Okay, I'm so sorry, Mr. Wellner. If you want to go ahead, and I'm going to promote, or Michael, maybe could you help me promote Mr. Heron as well, please? Go ahead, Mr. Wellner, on the piggyback rules, and maybe.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
We can. Thank you very much for being here. Can you just state your name for the record as well, please?
Sure. My name is John Wellner, and I'm speaking tonight on behalf of American Modular Systems. Overall, I want to say thank you to the board and to staff for clarifying this issue. We think you did a great job of summarizing what's been done and where things stand, and we do understand and agree with the overall conclusions of the report that there's a distinction to be made between modular building components that are assembled on site as a kind of construction and portable or relocatable classrooms that are these units that are built in a factory, come with the ceiling and floor, and are moved on site but can be moved around. But we do think that some clarification is needed with regard to the issue of what is a permanent foundation. Both your report and the AG's opinion focus on two issues in determining whether or not something is permanently affixed. One is the nature of the product, right? So is it a self-contained unit that you bring from a factory that is essentially a product like modular furniture, but in this case it is a completely built classroom that's brought on site. But the other, and this is really important because the case law talks a lot about this, is that whether something is permanently affixed is based primarily on the intent of the buyer. So in other words, if a school district is buying a portable classroom and intends to move it, then even though it is connected to a foundation, if the intent is not to permanently affix it in place, then it does not become real estate and should not be treated as real estate. It should be treated as a product that is being bought and attached like machinery and then reattached elsewhere. And the issue really comes around, I think there's a shorthand that happens when people talk about permanent foundations. The traditional distinction is, well, if it's concrete, it's permanent, and if it's wood, it's not. But that's really not true in terms of the facts on the ground. There are plenty of examples that we can provide of school districts that either use concrete pads or stem wall foundations that are both concrete, where their intent is to put something up temporarily and then either remove it or move it later. And so the simple distinction of concrete versus wood, we don't think is a really useful one, and has resulted in a lot of confusion when school districts ask for fully built classrooms that are put on site, but they're set on stem wall foundations. And this confusion, or this focus on what the foundation is made of, seems to have taken over a little bit instead of an analysis of what is personal property versus what is construction. So what we urge you to do, we're going to submit, we hope it's helpful, we're going to submit a short white paper to you, giving our legal view of this issue. I think it's very interesting that the various issues that you've raised of why are some things categorized as portable versus why some are not. So we're going to try and do that to be helpful. I'm not sure if, you're being asked tonight to accept this report. I'm not sure, certainly you can accept it and then we can submit more information. Or perhaps you might want to put off accepting it so that we can work with your staff and share our views about this so that we can try and get a clearer definition of what is portable versus what is modular components. So,
Mr. Wilner, so thank you. All of that would be really useful and I think certainly can inform us. This is not an action item. So this isn't.
no, I understand.
So no one is accepting the report per se.
Oh, okay.
I just want to make sure you understand
Thank you.
the difference. But yeah, I think absolutely when we our ability to discuss this again and learn from what you plan to submit will be really useful. So with that, and the knowledge that we're going to discuss this one more time, if you don't mind, I'm going to turn it to Mr. Heron for his public comment.
No, absolutely. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share that with you.
Thank you. We really appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Miller, and thank you, board members, for giving me a few minutes of your time this evening. I just wanted to give you kind of a tale from the field. I represent the San Jacinto Unified School District. We are an 89% a duplicated count district. Our assessed value in our community is lower than our surrounding areas and probably the average in the state. And you all know that what that means is our residents pay a higher tax rate when it comes to funding quality school facilities for our students. We began the process to plan a new middle school almost a decade ago, so that we had some parity in terms of modern school facilities for our students on both sides of the boundaries of our district. We passed a local school bond in 2016. And at the time, we still didn't have the funding to build the entire school. So because of what construction cost escalation was doing, we went ahead and bid about 2/3 of the school. At the time, that was what the board gave us direction to do. So we could at least lock in some of the pricing that we were seeing as things accelerated. And we decided that we were going to kind of gamble a little bit to figure out how we could acquire the remainder of the funding to complete the school. About 9 months into construction, we recognized the monetary savings and the accelerated delivery model that a modular construction building could offer us so that we complete the school and really keep our promise to our voters. That was this middle school was a promise of our 2016 election, essentially. Before we move forward, we did, obviously, we obtained approval from CDE and of course the Division of State Architects, and we even consulted with some folks at the OPSC and were told about the appeal process. We took out a bridge loan to fund those modular buildings to complete the school. And of course, our board took action to accept the competitively bid buildings. I think that's important to remember that these buildings that we awarded a contract to, they were competitively bid. They were not competitively bid by us. Obviously, we used the piggyback contract. By changing the delivery model of the remaining buildings, we actually saved, we figure, about $2 million. We took the square feet of the buildings we purchased that we competitively build on our own, the stick-built buildings, if you will. And then compared them to the square footage we received, after awarding the modular classrooms. And we saved about $2 million in construction costs. And it allows us to complete the buildings and complete the school on a much quicker timeline so that we were open at the beginning of this school year. So I just really appreciate the question that Assemblymember O'Donnell asked earlier. I guess my question is, why are we removing this delivery model for school districts at a time where we know that quality school facilities are what our communities and residents deserve? And also, I think it's just gives us flexibility. And why wouldn't we want to save some money and save some time in terms of construction when we see what the cost of the construction cost escalation is doing, and how difficult it is to fund and build schools. So I'm interested in following the discussion. Again, I appreciate the comments from Ms. Lasso and others that are asking, you understand the intent of the AG opinion. You understand the opinion, but what's the intent, and why remove a good delivery model if it's something that provides flexibility to school districts so they can meet the needs of their community. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. And please follow our agenda so you can see when this is posted again. So I think that was all really helpful. When either it may not be until April that we're able to discuss it again. And Mr. Morales, I really appreciate you pointing out. So because it's not an action item, we're receiving the report today, but we absolutely will continue discussion and continue to have input. So I hope I'm not confusing anyone by saying we're not. It's not a board action to approve. So hopefully I can clarify that a little bit, but it absolutely warrants more discussion, and you'll see it on the agenda again. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, do you want to just give us an update on the projected workload, Ms. Kampminer?
Yeah, so we've got the balance of our standard reports included in the agenda. We have included the 3-month workload. Looks like we'll have an update to that one as a result of this meeting, and just our workload lists are included. And the dates for the 2022 meetings are included. So that something to note since we're now well into 2022. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. And after March, I believe we'll be back in person, correct?
Yay. I believe so, yes.
So, any questions? So this brings us to our final public comment. Anyone wishing to comment for any reason. I do believe that the superintendent of Wasco Union wanted to take a moment to comment during this time. So now is the time, please, Mr. Kelly Richards, that you'll raise your, oh, there you are. Great, thank you so much. If you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, sir, and if you want to comment on anything not on the agenda this afternoon, please. So you'd have to unmute yourself. I can ask you to unmute as well. Mr. Richards, can you hear me? Mr. Richards, it's your, this is the time to speak, sir. So you'd have to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now, sir.
Oh, thank God. I've been racing all over Sacramento because I couldn't get a secure connection in my laptop.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
I'm at the CASH conference, so now I'm standing on a bridge trying to get over to 707 3rd Street.
Oh,
where you said
man.
you could be. So, all right, if I may.
Please begin.
Thank you for your time. My name is Kelly Richards, and I'm the superintendent of the Wasco Union Elementary School District, a district of some 3,400 K-8 students located north of Bakersfield. Our district has historically grown by approximately 50 students per year, for at least the previous 10 years before the pandemic. Classrooms were overfilled by 2017. A new school was opened in 2019. The community of only 20,000 approved bonds totaling over $21 million. The district qualified at that time for state construction funding of $11 million. The district also qualified for hardship funding, increasing the amount to $22 million. The state did not have the money at occupancy, and our application for construction funding was placed on a received beyond bond authority list. This board now says they have funds available to process payment. Using current year enrollment figures, which are disproportionately reduced by COVID-19, the board is calculating that we will receive only some $3.1 million of the $22 million expected. We have apparently no recourse under the option 1 you initiated in 2017. At that time, reviewing the notes from the meetings, board member Kim could not see how any school district could be harmed, according to the meeting record. CASH representatives in the next meeting warned that this might be a violation of statute 17071.75. You nevertheless initiated option 1. Your directions were to have staff bring an appeal to the board when someone is disadvantaged by this program. we will be harmed irreparably using current enrollment figures. The Wasco Union School District is composed of 93% unduplicated students and 96% minority students. What you are intending to do will cripple the district, as the district will now have to use general fund money to cover the amount you are proposing to not pay. We will be in financial crisis for years to come, at a time when other state agencies are infusing stimulus money and COVID relief funds. With no mechanism in place to account for the loss of students through COVID-19, this board is discriminating against those districts that have large numbers of marginalized students and families such as Wasco. What makes this even more discriminatory is that while the application from Wasco was waiting, this board funded under small school district rules the complete rebuild of a neighboring school district that had allowed its infrastructure to deteriorate completely. That district has a totally different student ethnic makeup. I believe the term once used was white flight. This discrimination becomes now a federal civil rights violation. The media will love the comparisons in your priorities should you proceed with your current plans. I have contacted our senators and our governor's office concerning this immoral and potentially illegal use of COVID-19 enrollment decreases in calculating payments to districts, and fully intend to pursue redress in state and federal court should some accommodation not be reached that mitigates this upcoming financial disaster in Wasco. Here are two proposals that would solve this. Either pay affected districts the amount due based on enrollment at filing, or give all impacted districts 5 years to recover those enrollment losses and fund them at that time. Last Friday, was the first time our enrollment increased since the pandemic started. We know our population will increase, and the state's responsibility for mitigating pandemic impact is significant. Thank you for your time. I do appreciate it. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Richards. Thank you for finding a space so that you were able to communicate with us this afternoon. Just for the board's information, there is the, Mr. Richards is not commenting on anything on the agenda today. It is about general apportionments. And so we can, are there any questions on that?
It has actually under the consent
Mr. Richards?
agenda for Wasco.
Well, it's not under the consent agenda, Mr. Richards, unless you wanted to remove that from the consent agenda and you decided and you chose not to. So that was already approved by the board.
Right, that's why I'm bringing it up, yes. Mhm.
So are you telling us, would you like us to go back and not approve your apportionment in the consent agenda this afternoon?
I don't believe that there's an alternative because you don't allow us to renew our place in line anywhere. So if you don't approve it, then we would get nothing.
Well, unfortunately, oh, sorry,
May I-
go ahead, Ms. Campminer. Yeah.
Yeah, if I could just clarify what's on the consent calendar for the district, it's the eligibility adjustment, the new construction eligibility adjustment. We have not actually finalized the processing of the application, so the funding application is not a part of this agenda.
Right, and that's why they put me to the back of the agenda, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
But I think it's a really important point, Mr. Richards, that what you're speaking about is not on today's agenda. First, you go through eligibility, and of course, so that everybody in the state has equal access to this program. There are rules and regulations that everyone follows, including the daily attendance. And that's a big part of our regulation. That's actually a big part of school funding, as you know, generally. So the funding does come at a later date, but I just want to clarify for the board that you're not disputing anything in the consent agenda. This is general public comment about an allocation that has yet to be made.
That is correct.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions on, or any other member of the public wishing to comment for any reason? Seeing none, we're just going to go back through. Senator Laird, if you don't mind, just to make sure that we have recorded you on all the various issues.
That's great.
We really appreciate that. Thank you, sir. But I think we are, if anyone else, I think that is the last item of business before the board this afternoon. Really appreciate everyone being here. And congratulations again, Ms. Lasso. That's very exciting.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So for the minutes, Senator?
Aye.
Great, thank you. You want to take over, Ms. Jones? Why am I doing this?
Yeah, I can take over.
Thank you.
Senator, how do you vote on the consent calendar?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, and then how do you vote on the two action items, the annual adjustment to school facility program grants and the index adjustment on the assessment for development?
Aye and aye.
And I thank you, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned. We'll see you next month. Take care, everyone. Have a great afternoon. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.